Welcome, everybody, back to Human Reaction Podcast. Now, this week, we have a special episode, a unique culture-focused episode. So we have a Discord channel, and on that Discord channel, we have some ladies who have been driving the conversation on getting us to engage more with culture. And so we are going to be diving into a special request for Hannah's birthday, going to give her exactly what she wants. So you can see here is that, of course, Cheryl is actually not interested in war and the Epstein stuff, which is understandable. There's a lot of fatigue out there. I get that. And what Hannah wants is for us to watch the season 4, a review of season 4 of The Secret Lives of Mormon Housewives. So, and Emily supports, and it really did well on the Discord poll that we do a lot of weeks when we're like, what do we talk about? We put polls in there and we hear directly from our community. We love that. So if you haven't joined the Discord, make sure to go in the link below and go check out our Discord. We have a lot of great times in there. So without further ado, let's dive into the secret lives of Mormon housewives.
I feel like something's coming.
I think we all know what's coming.
You guys ready?
We're starting with a prayer.
Everything has just been blowing up.
I gotta be honest. This is way more political than I anticipated.
Yeah, I did not expect them to be talking about
everything blowing up.
Yeah, that's something else.
No kidding.
Wow.
Well, and I didn't expect Trump to be in it either.
What's this, BB?
Yeah.
I mean,
Our first Mormon president.
by the way, BB's looking good.
He really is. He's done
neck
some work.
down,
I think he's had some work done, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So I guess there's a war going on according to this show.
Yeah, we should probably look into that.
We probably should.
All right, let's do that.
Okay. Sorry.
No, sorry guys.
guys.
Let's talk about war.
Yeah.
War! Ah!
You know what we can talk about?
What?
Is how lit the propaganda videos for this war are.
They have been lit.
I mean, dude, just like the animated videos that they're just sending back and forth. Iran makes one. The White House makes one. Iran makes one. It's fucking insane.
Talking shit on the internet as you conduct a horrible humanity catastrophe.
Yeah, and it's
kind of, if you're a millennial, you just remember it was George Bush being a goofball while doing awful things.
Yeah,
right?
I think the
with
closest thing
opposition.
The closest thing George Bush had to this was the moment where he gave that little speech on the golf course, and then he's like, "Now watch this drive."
Yeah, right.
Like that was the most.
We're gonna catch the terrorists, and then we're gonna it's a unified nation.
You're either with us
coalition.
or against us.
Yeah. Now watch this drive.
And he smokes it.
Yeah.
Like pretty cool.
It was kind of good. It was good.
Okay. All right. So we are not reviewing Secret Lives of Mormon Wives or girlfriends or whatever they are.
Rug pull.
We're talking about war. Sorry, ladies.
Sorry, ladies.
I don't think that my fiance would ever let me watch that show anyway.
Dude. Yeah, that was
spicy.
Yeah, that was a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and
instead,
Mormons, why would Mormons? We're going to talk about war. We're out of that. Let's look at Donald Trump doing his thing. So what basically last week I did a solo podcast where I advanced a theory that the model is Syria. This is Syria 2.0. And it's not exactly that. I'm sure every plan is a unique snowflake plan. But what I'm observing is kind of like a tectonic shift after Iraq, where after all of the bombings, roadside bombings, and the exposure our troops faced while being on the ground, occupying a country was such a problem, losing war morale in the United States because of that, that Robert Pate comes along and he advances this idea of strategic offshoring, which is that you take all the assets that allow you to project force and you move them to an aircraft carrier so they can't touch you, but you can touch them. Mm. That pretty much informs Obama's drone warfare program. Mm-hmm. And if you look at, of course, the Arab Spring, the manipulation of that into the first kind of digital warfare type effort, that resulted in Libya and Syria and all these other countries across the Middle East and the northern part of Africa falling to these uprisings in Egypt and other places. That when we projected force in terms of especially Syria, it was from the air. if that's what we're doing, it kind of lines up really well with this thesis that I have, that this is Syria 2.0, and therefore there's things that you could predict out of that if we're going to just persist here, which it implies things like there's going to be a big migrant crisis. There's going to be, probably homegrown terrorist attacks that happen because of this. There's going to be blah, 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 blah down the line that I was predicting. And so I got some confirmation this week that I want to talk a little bit about to kind of like build on this theory. And then some additional news happened in the war that I do think is worth covering.
Let's do it.
Yeah. All right. So they're still flooding the zone with an unclear cause of action for the war. Like, why are we doing this? Trump has some new statements out about it, and I think they're important for us to hear.
The situation was very quickly approaching the point of no return, and the United States found it intolerable, in my opinion, based on what Steve and Jared and Pete and others were telling me, Marco, so involved, that I thought that they were going to attack us. I thought they would, if we didn't do this at the time we did it, I think they had in mind to attack us. And the situation was very quick.
So the new theory is that the negotiations weren't going like the way they anticipated, where they could just show up and bring a bunch of forces to bear, and Iran would be like, no, actually you can have all the things that we fought and sacrificed so much for 30 years. Right?
Very realistic outcome.
Yeah, that they would just show up and do that. And then, these two guys who are not exactly experts in the area of negotiation over politics, of which we're talking about, or foreign policy, or experts in nuclear weapons, or anything like that. And that's saying that only experts can do this. I'm a skeptical of the expert class in general, but I am skeptical of this claim that negotiations weren't doing well. Therefore, that meant, and I went over this in the last episode, like I actually reviewed some of Witkoff's statements that he gave on Mark Levin's show. I love you guys. I listen to Mark Levin for you.
It's a sacrifice right there.
And in this, it doesn't make a lot of sense. But now he's claiming that somehow that made him feel like they were about to attack us. Now, there's no evidence he presents for that. The best evidence we have are his feelings. Here's more from Caroline Levitt about the president's feelings.
The president said yesterday for the first time that he had to strike Iran because he believes that Iran was going to strike U.S. targets within 7 days. And then he bumped that down later to 3 days. Where is he getting that?
Well, that's not the first time the president has said that he chose to launch Operation Epic Fury because he felt as though Iran was going to strike the United States and our assets in the region first. Again, I addressed this in the last briefing. This was a feeling the president had based on facts provided to him by his top negotiators.
What facts? Like, if you could present us with the facts, then we would understand his feelings. But we're kind of left guessing at the president's feelings.
Right. It's like, at least they told us that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, which didn't turn out to be true, but at least they told us the thing that they were going off of, or wanted us to think they were going off of, right? They're not even giving us anything at this point.
Something to falsify against. Like
right.
Something to say, and it's not that I want that because I want him to be wrong. I want that so I can trust my government.
Right.
Right? I don't feel like that's unreasonable to say what I desire is to be treated like an adult who's capable of grappling with these issues in a sophisticated way.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I feel, since we're talking about feelings, that if we're in this moment of just going on the president's feelings, that you have a responsibility to give me the facts that were. And it can't be, well, they didn't want to give us their ballistic missile program, so we attacked them. That can't be it. That can't be the evidence you're using, because that's what it appears to be if you listen to Witkoff's statements on it so far.
And it also can't be to destroy the Al-Aqsa Mosque and rebuild the Third Temple and usher in the coming of the Messiah / Antichrist. That's not an answer that the American public would really take well, I don't think.
That's a weird feeling. The feeling I have is we really want to bring the Antichrist back. Yeah, I don't know about that theory, but it's still crazy. I mean, like, and how do we grapple with this? I'm not exactly sure what they expect Americans to do with this information. That the president had a feeling they were going to attack us, and that is a sufficient cause to looping us into what could potentially be a very, very long, devastating war.
Right.
It's going to be very long and devastating, or it's going to be shorter but still devastating for lots of reasons. Even if we completely pulled out of the Middle East, There's no reason Iran would necessarily have to give up on the Strait of Hormuz. They can punish the entire world for as long as they wanted to if we pulled out. So yeah, we have to stay in. Now, how long can they sustain it? Don't know. I'm not a military expert. I don't know. But there's a lot of conflicting opinion about exactly what that will take. Second to that, if you consider this as a Syria 2.0 scenario, we have to keep going until they are fighting each other. But that hasn't happened yet. There's no protests. There's nothing in the streets. So if that's what their aim is, that doesn't necessarily mean that's what will happen. I'm just saying I think this is what they're aiming for.
Right. If anything, you're seeing kind of the opposite of protests and infighting. I mean, there was some footage of an Iranian reporter broadcasting live from a demonstration that was going on where there were a ton of Iranian flags, and you hear missiles land in the distance, and all the flags start waving and people start cheering, and it's like the rally around the flag phenomenon that we've talked about before. Mm-hmm. So actually quite the opposite of maybe trying to throw off the shackles of this oppressive regime and have the people rise up and overthrow them. That's really not what appears to be happening. But again, it's so hard to tell because there's so little credible information coming out.
Right. I mean, it does fit the model of what we understand happens when you attack a country. Is that people say, we have differences. We're a diverse country. But if you bombed us, we would immediately go, I don't care about our differences anymore. You're the bad guy. It happened one time. It was called 9/11, and it completely changed our society. Mm-hmm. Just remember, just replace yourself back. If you're millennial or older, you'll remember it. September 12th, 2011, or 2001, you're walking down the street in America, and every house has an American flag. Mm-hmm. Now, if you walk doors right now, the only houses with American flags are Republicans.
Yep. And me.
That's the difference.
I have an American flag.
Well, yeah. But yeah, right wingers.
Sure.
You're still in this. You're in this place where it's difficult to tease apart. You're right. It's difficult to tease apart what's true and what's false and what's propaganda, what's not. But I do think but we're getting enough signals, I think, to continue to develop our theory here, and that is that. And this story from The Guardian was interesting because, right after I recorded my podcast last week, there was an Israeli intelligence official, unnamed, so came out and said, "Well, we wouldn't mind regime change, but we'll settle for a failed state," which is that's kind of what happened in Syria. They created a failed state, and then out of that, they were able to get a regime change.
But this one feels different, right? A failed state in Iran is different than a failed state in Syria, doesn't that?
Well, there's more people in Iran than there is in Syria, and they're a more sophisticated country. They do have similarities when it comes to, they do have a lot of ethnic differences within the country. But do they have the same history of mutual militia combat going on, street level violence and things like that Syria did have even under Assad? I don't think so. There have been a Persian state there for thousands of years, right? Unlike Syria, which has had a lot of different rulers and conquerors and things like that over all this time. So I'm kind of skeptical that that's true, that that's possible, but that doesn't mean that's not what they're trying to do. And in fact, we now know, because of this Guardian article, that Israel attacked Iran with no clear plan for regime change, Israeli security sources say. So if the regime holds control of enriching uranium, may be the ultimate measure of U.S.-Israeli success, insiders say, which is another thing I talked about, which is everyone seems like we're, get out of here, paywall. Everyone seems to be focused on this war, but I'm did we forget about all the nuclear material? What's going to happen with that?
Right. Well, if the state fails, whose hands does that material fall into?
Right. And I've been told 60% super, super duper dangerous by the war hawks. So why are we doing a war that, could result in someone who is even less reliable than a nation state getting a hold of it? What if it's Al-Qaeda that gets a hold of it?
Well, I mean, the Taliban ended up with a lot of our weapons and helicopters and all sorts of stuff when we left Afghanistan. So, I mean, that's not exactly unprecedented.
Yeah.
Seems like a real risk.
Oh, maybe we get the Taliban to invade Iran, and then they do that.
They're pretty stable, right?
Well,
they're not very authoritarian. They're much better.
I don't know. We're giving them millions of dollars every month for some reason. Still, remember that? Maybe they're our allies now. I don't know. That's how insane this all is. And if you get a sense of this is all insane, don't worry. That just means you're still sane, because all this stuff is crazy. looking at it on its facts. So, and what this article does is what it effectively details is how they kind of attacked because they felt like they needed to now. They're unclear about exactly why now was so important, but they said like, well, we kind of got started because we felt like we needed to, and we're not really sure what the end game is, but we don't want them to get nuclear weapons, and we basically have to go until we know that they can't get nuclear weapons before. They're kind of setting that as the war aim in here. Mm-hmm. Once again, reinforcing that they don't know whether or not they are going for regime change. And like, that's the Reza Pahlavi, like moving them out of the DC metropolitan area and dropping them in Iran to be like, you're the ruler now. And see, will that work? Will that work without ground troops, American ground troops? And there's still a lot of debate, that I'm still trying to understand whether or not that's actually possible. Can you remove a regime? Have you ever had a regime fall without ground troops? Because you look at Syria, the basic strategy was provide air cover, provide a no-fly zone, prevent him from being able to take care of the factions that were arising in Syria, and then reinforcing those factions with CIA and Pentagon weapons. Sometimes they would fire it at each other, which is your tax dollars at work.
Classic.
Until eventually HTS takes over, and now we have an Al-Qaeda leader in charge of Syria.
Wearing a suit.
I mean, his head chopping days are over.
That's right.
Joe.
He's all grown up.
All grown up.
That's right.
So the next is this wonderful, interesting little clip specifically about when we're talking about regime change, which is Trump talking about how the Israelis, they've kind of killed everybody that could have been the person to take leadership roles in the country.
Their leadership is just rapidly going. Everybody that seems to want to be a leader, they end up dead. And it's an amazing thing that's taking place before your eyes, because for 47 years we were pushed around, and we shouldn't have been. And I think I can say, and you see it as well as I do, you see the tremendous progress that's being made. Their missiles are being wiped out rapidly. Their launchers are being wiped out. They're attacking.
So this is what keeps happening. He goes on to how great it is, but like what he confesses up front is we don't know who to replace anybody with. Because all their leaders are dead.
Interesting. But Reza Pahlavi is not dead.
He's not dead. He's alive and well in the greater metropolitan area of Northern Virginia.
Interesting.
Quite safe.
Well, and I wonder, if that were to be the end game, because he does seem like he's very westernized and probably very friendly to the United States and perhaps Israel as well. Like, would the people accept him?
No.
Do they want him?
No, it's absurd. You just can't imagine that that's true.
Right.
Like imagine.
But why is that for folks that might not be so?
Okay, so I'm sure that there are Persian Americans who would love to see that happen, but the question is whether or not it's a realistic scenario. Imagine that you've grown up. You're 30 years old in Iran when this is taking place, and you've grown up your entire life with America sanctioning your country, backing Israel, and assassinating your people, backing Israel, and bombing your country. Now, even if you're a big supporter of the war, you still have to really suspend a lot of belief that that person, that young man who grew up with that, is going to be like, oh, this guy who comes from that country, that's been living in that country this whole time, is going to come here and not be a puppet of that country after they installed him? That he's going to be a representative of my will, or will he be a representative of that country's will? It's hard to imagine that person. And I'm just trying to use reason here. I'm not trying to claim I know. I'm just saying that seems completely unintuitive to me, especially given what we've seen with the rally around the flag of being bombed, right? If someone in your family, and not take that 30-year-old and now make it so that his little sister was killed in a bombing at a school, bombed by the Americans. That was an accident, yes. But doesn't matter for that person on the ground whose daughter or little sister's dead. And will you forgive that country ever? No. Doesn't matter how many times you apologize. Never. And I can imagine I wouldn't expect him to.
Right. Right. Well, and it's just the most recent example of the blowback that we've been experiencing from our involvement in the Middle East for the last 30 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And it does ask you at the end of the day too, if Israel keeps killing all of the leaders that we were hoping to put into place in order to get a regime change that we could have cut a deal with maybe. Was that ever realistic? I don't know. But if they're killing them, what kind of client state is this? What kind of ally does that? Right? I mean, if we're the one giving them weapons, the reason would suggest that we are the senior partner.
Yeah.
And when you're the senior partner, you think like, okay, guys, we're in this war. Oh my God, it happened really fast. Uh-oh. And there's evidence to suggest that the State Department was somewhat surprised by this and so had to act quickly. But within 24 hours of that initial moment, you go like, what's the plan, Israel? And they say, well, we're doing regime change. You're like, well, who are we picking? And then you don't kill that one, but for some reason, they kill them all. Like, what? Help me understand that. Somebody. That this is a partnership, an allyship, a situation in which we are the senior partner and they are our collaborator, if that's true. Or we're just operating in parallel. And what that fits, the parallel, operating in parallel, and we're not actually allies, fits a particular model. It does lead some credence to a particular model for the actual end cause of the war. And what that is a theory that we basically got into this situation because Israel said time's up, and is either America, you go in with us when we bomb and kill Khomeini today, or we will use a nuclear weapon. Now, there's no evidence for that theory other than the circumstantial evidence of everything happening around that. And this would lead into some of that circumstantial evidence that we're not really collaborators on this, that we're just kind of doing this to keep them from doing something far worse. Because you could see how a nuclear weapon dropped into Iran would have cascading collateral consequences that were far worse than the alternative. And if that were happening, I could totally understand what the administration is doing on many levels. That said, we don't know that's what's happening. And so Israel gets to get away with everything by doing that, if that's what they're doing. It leaves them guiltless for everything that follows. And that's a problem for me. I have a problem with the bad guy getting away.
Yeah.
Just an American instinct on that one.
Totally. It's not how the story is supposed to go.
Yeah.
Good guys are supposed to win.
Yeah, exactly. It's a Marvel movie.
Yeah.
So another one is Trump said no to the Kurds invasion, but it's also important to keep in mind there are 8 to 15 million Kurds in Iran now. So whether or not we arm them can obviously, or he could basically be telling, because that's what the CIA, this is how your government works, people. The president can say, we're not going to arm the Kurds in order to start a civil war. And then the CIA can go do that as long as they don't tell him. That's called plausible deniability. So the problem I have is now my theory can't be falsified until until enough time goes by, because the CIA, by its nature, by its enabling language, by the thing that makes it what it is, can lie to the public and allow the president to lie to you as long as he doesn't know about it. And that's also another reason why he's always saying, well, from what they're telling me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're in a situation where it's still, of course, very possible that the Kurds get involved in this. And there are various different, the Druze and other people groups that are in Iran who could end up becoming a factional war. We haven't seen any evidence of that yet. And when asked by Dropsite News and a couple others, the Kurds, the PRK specifically in Turkey, Azerbaijan, and those areas, that part of Kurdistan, as well as Iraqi Kurds, there wasn't any clarity that, yes, we're going in, right, from the outside. Although we did bomb the fortified border areas that would separate and keep that from happening. So if they wanted to, they could, but they haven't said that they are. So
I thought I saw some reporting, and I don't know if this was substantiated. Perhaps you can clarify that the Kurds actually said that they would not participate.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm trying to suggest.
Yeah.
That said, there are multiple Kurd factions. That was specifically the most powerful, most militarized Kurd faction, and they have an incentive to lie publicly about
Why?
this. Well, if you say I'm not going to do it, then I can surprise you when I do.
That's fair. Element of surprise makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Got to hide your cross behind your jab. So, yeah. All right. So next, the oil infrastructure was bombed. At the time when I reported last week, it hadn't really happened. Now it has. To the point where the city of Tehran, I still don't know how to say it, is raining oil.
Jeez.
Where so much has gone up into the atmosphere from burning, that it's coagulated with water.
Because after those fires raged,
coagulated with water, and is now coming down as oil. And actually, you could see it on the car here.
Oh, that's
Down
gross.
on people.
That's crazy.
Pretty wild.
Yeah, so you see a guy wipe his finger across the hood of a car, and it's got this black, sooty-looking stuff on it.
Mm-hmm.
Can't imagine that's good to breathe.
No, not
good for the environment.
Not Maha. I'll tell you that much. not Iha, making Iran healthy again. Not
Miha. Not super Miha.
Not Miha. And some of these visuals are wild. Like, look at this burning.
Damn.
Watch this.
And that's an oil refinery on fire?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Just
the same government that tells you to use a paper straw
right?
does that.
Well, to be fair, I don't think Trump's in favor of paper straws, but
you're right. You're right.
To be fair, look at this. Look at this one, Joe.
Oh boy. It's like something out of the Lord of the Rings.
You know, and all these Democrats that are, but that criticism does apply to all the Democrats who voted against the War Powers Resolution, because a lot did. Quite a few did. All right, that's just oil that just got out in the streets and is burning.
That's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
are we the baddies?
That's a good question. I don't. It's a difficult moment, right? Because obviously the American military they're doing the orders that they're asked to do, right? They're from their perspective. I can totally understand the guy on the ground is just doing the things that the political leadership that America elected told him to do, and that's how the system works. Now, what the president is doing is illegal, in my belief. I believe it is unconstitutional to start a war without Congress declaring it.
I agree.
I think the Constitution is pretty clear about that. I'd be happy to debate someone about it. That said, you know, the person on the ground, it's not their job to interpret that and decide. That's really the political leadership's job to hold itself accountable to the Constitution.
That seems unlikely.
Yeah. But that's how the system really works. Now,
isn't it our job to hold the political class accountable to the Constitution?
Yes.
As the electorate?
Yes, I would agree with that too. I'm only saying that, like, as compared to the guy on the ground who's running the drones or flying the bombers.
Well, it's up to Congress to assert its authority, which it's not doing.
So when you say we are the baddies, I don't think the guys on the ground really have the ill will here or really doing the evil thing, and I don't think the American people who are just paying the taxes and trying to keep their head above water as inflation and affordability problems and everything going on in the country, and contending with the very stark realities of what our political class is like that we've revealed in the last year.
Yeah.
So, you know, is the policy that though? Well, I mean, we're the aggressors here, and it's hard to be the aggressor and be now. If it is Israel was gonna nuke them, and we're doing this just to keep the nuclear war from kicking off, well, no, we're not you're making the best decision you can, maybe. You know, like, I'm open to that. I want that to be true. I just need facts to reliably say that's actually what's happening.
Yeah, but even in that scenario, if Israel was going to nuke them, isn't there more to be done dealing with Israel than there is just saying, okay, no, don't do that. We'll just attack them first with conventional weapons, because that's the lesser of two evils. Like, that's just not really, that doesn't make sense to me.
Well,
I get it.
Yeah.
But I think that's like the inferior solution to dealing with Israel using nukes, perhaps, if that is the case.
I would suggest that is a fair criticism. Not officially. They're not a part of the inspection regime that every other country that has nukes.
Including, wasn't Iran part of that? Even though they don't have nukes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Cool. Just confirming.
Just checking.
Just checking.
Yep.
Thanks for checking in.
Legit.
Yeah, and I think it's a really important moral question to always hammer in on, right? Which is, you know, criticizing the war isn't criticizing the American people.
Right.
It is criticizing the war and the policy around that war. And I want to be really clear about that. When I say I think the war is unwise, I mean that. When I say the war reaches the place where I'm like, this is an evil act, right? And you're taking it that far, you're not saying the American people are. You're saying this policy is. This thing that we've decided to do is the wrong thing to do. I'm still going to pay my taxes this year. I'm not picking up a rifle, but I'm saying this is the wrong thing to do. And I don't want to be a part of this. And can we please change direction? And part of that to me is best expressed by saying, I really hope we get out tomorrow. I just hope it stops now, like as soon as possible. Like we just literally pick up every asset in the Middle East and we go home, right? Because I'm tired of being here and say, Israel, clean it up. Have at thee. But we're not going to do that. That's an unrealistic.
So you just want to pull out?
Just want to pull out. Yep.
Cool.
Yep. In the dark. So they also attacked the electricity infrastructure. This is Tehran at night right now. See the? Whoa. Yeah, I think it's lightning, or maybe that was a bomb going off. I don't know. Hard to tell. We'll watch it one more time.
That's not lightning.
Yeah, that's something else.
Is there audio with this clip?
Oh yeah.
What's it sound like?
Straight up UAPs.
Space laser. Pew.
That was straight from the clip. And no one made a sound effect with their voice.
Pew. All right. So yeah, that's that. And then so infrastructure destroyed. That really leads to what you need in order to get a failed state is you need a political collapse and you need a social collapse. You need to break apart all the cohesions that make a Persian identity what it is. One of the ways to do that is you undermine people's ability to get access to the basics of life. The very bottom of Maslow's hierarchy of needs needs to be undermined. Safety, the shelter, reliability of basic comforts like heat and water and food.
Survival stuff.
And light. Now, heat, water, food. The next one, water. They've been bombing. Now the water desalination plants. Both sides happen.
Right.
Which is going to be a massive humanitarian problem.
Yeah.
They're in deserts. They have way bigger populations than deserts can provide water for without desalination.
I was looking at some statistics on this, and some of these countries in the Middle East consume thousands of times more water than their environment produces, and they rely exclusively, for the most part, on desalination to survive.
Yes. Yeah. So a very scary humanitarian situation could be coming right around the corner. And when people start starving to death or dying of dehydration, they start doing some really crazy stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm really worried specifically about that happening. A humanitarian problem comes up, and then the blowback that happens from that when we are the ones, even if they were going to attack us first based on feelings, or even if Israel's about to use nukes, we are the ones who started this. And that's the visual actual record. And until there's uncontroversial evidence that they were about to attack us, or at least some case made systemically, or it comes out that this, a cable is leaked that with Netanyahu saying, do this, Donald, or I'm going to drop nukes. It's hard to not look like the aggressor. And when you're the aggressor, you're the bad guy, axiomatically, in every ethical system on the planet. You can't be the guy who starts the fight and be the good guy. There has to be some provoking incident, some reasonable, evidence-based thing leading to the conflict that makes you defensive to be moral.
Yeah.
And when we're no longer moral, it undermines our ability to say we're the good guys. And we all want to be. Americans all want to be the good guys. We want to be the Marvel guy that's saving the world. That's why they frame all the propaganda that way. But they're not letting us be. Right? Because they're saying, because of the nature of the facts that happened that made this war go.
But David, we're overthrowing an authoritarian, oppressive regime that terrorizes its own people.
Yeah. That is a challenge for people to contend with. We don't like authoritarianism, but that doesn't mean we necessarily have to overthrow the regime. We deal with lots of regimes very closely that are just as authoritarian as Iran. They're just as bad. We dealt with Saudi Arabia for years. Now, they've lightened up a lot lately. Good for them. Really happy for them. But for a very long time, you got the burqas and the women can't drive and have no rights and all the things that we point to and say that that's a disgusting way to treat women or run your social order. We get along with them just fine. And we got along with Iran fine until the 1990s.
What changed?
Well,
Bibi Netanyahu.
No, not Bibi. There's another guy. Smotrich or no? Who was it? There was another. Basically, Israel changed their policy, so we changed ours. I mean, we sold them weapons in Iran-Contra. Now, we did run the Iraq war against them, and we had reason not to like them, but we were able to find it within ourselves to trade drug money for weapons, to give them to the weapons of the Contras in South America. So, I mean, if we could do that, could we like just come to terms, right? If you could trade with somebody, you should be able to, get along.
Yeah.
In fact, there was a time frame when Israel was actually planning an oil pipeline with Iran. Yeah, they were friendly until the early 90s. So, but I mean, just imagine that. Completely different timeline where people like
got
didn't
along.
do this. Yeah.
God, what a novel idea.
You're right. So like the worst stuff that Iran has done, like funding Hezbollah, building up their ballistic missile arsenal. I don't think there's any evidence that the 90s they were really threatening to build nuclear weapons, although they had a nuclear capability that we gave them in the 1940s or 50s. So, those things all started in the 90s after Israel changed their position on Iran. So in other developments, we have some really interesting stuff going on with this. Dropsite News did a poll that released this week, yesterday, in fact, March 11th. The poll shows a majority of Americans believe that the Trump launched the Iran war to cover up for the Epstein scandal. Really interesting stuff. We dig into the numbers here real quick. And this does suggest quite a bit about how the American public is kind of orientating to the whole thing. That was worse somehow. So here are the numbers. Don't like it. Most voters believe Trump took military action in Iran to distract from Iran.
Epstein.
Yeah.
One more time.
The question is, which of the following statements regarding President Trump's motivation to take military action against Iran comes closest to your view, even if neither is exactly right? 1, President Trump was at least partly motivated to take take action against Iran in order to distract from Jeffrey Epstein. Don't know, or next answer, President Trump was not motivated at all to pursue the war to take military action against Iran in order to distract from Jeffrey Epstein scandal.
So clearly 52% of all likely voters believe that he was at least partly motivated to start the war to distract. Democrats, 81% overwhelmingly believe he was at least partly motivated. Independent and third party, 52% believe that. Republicans, only 26% believe that, which I think this tracks down party lines.
This all makes sense on party lines, but the important thing to understand for the election cycle
is that the majority of all likely voters believe that this was a distraction.
And importantly, 52% of independent third party. And a lot of that don't know are going to move their way because everyone loves a good conspiracy theory.
That's true. I do love a good conspiracy theory.
It's the most tempting way to move your election. So if you're a Democrat next year, what you're going to be saying is that you're running against Republicans. This guy supports the Iran war, and we all know that the Iran war was to distract from the Epstein files. The politics writes itself.
I mean, have you heard the story that Trump was, and this is completely unsubstantiated as far as I know, but that Trump was adamant that they name the operation Epic Fury?
Yeah.
Because when you type Trump Ep, like epic, it doesn't bring up Trump Epstein first. It takes that off of the top
Is that true?
autofill on Google.
Let's find out.
I've seen it alleged. I have no idea if it's true.
Let's try it.
Let's see.
Trump Ep.
Nope. Trump Epstein statue.
So that's a lot of Epstein.
Episode South Park comes out. Epic.
It's sad.
And then Fury doesn't even come next.
Not working well.
Well, I mean, it could be the motive, even if that's not what actually was the end result.
And maybe it didn't work. Yeah, but I have no idea if it was actually his motive. This was a tweet that I read that I found humorous.
He talked about it in a War College speech where he was just like, they had a big list of names on the wall, and I was like, that's the best one. Very Trumpian. Very much like telling the story. So, and like my point on the electoral cycle is that, there is a majority this is going to be used against effectively. So this is political candidates who back war with Iran risk electoral backlash. Would you be more or less likely to vote for the following? Much more likely, somewhat less likely, wouldn't affect my decision, somewhat less likely, or much less likely. And so when you look at what are these orange numbers, red numbers on the right? What you're looking.
Right.
Yeah,
David is colorblind for those of us that don't know.
Yeah, I forgot. Shut up, man. So a candidate for Congress in 2026 who supports the U.S. war with Iran. The much less likely is very strong. And like part of polling is understanding intensity. When you do this kind of 5 bracket thing, what you're trying to get a sense for is the amount of people who are most intensely activated by this.
Yeah.
And if it's particularly offensive to people, it has a viral effect. It pulls people that way. So if you have a large, very intensity, a small, kind of lean that way, and then a small don't know, and then with a large don't know on the opposite side, and a small intensity, what you're going to see is that gravity pull towards the more intense side.
Right.
That's the typical classical understanding of how to read something like that.
Yeah.
And that's what we see here. We don't see a big, much more intensity column here. What is this, purple?
Blue, but
God
really close. So, yeah, I mean, a candidate for U.S. Congress in 2026 who supports the U.S. war with Iran, we've got 36% are much less likely to vote for them to only 17% are much more likely to vote for them. So, I mean, almost double there. A candidate for president in 2028 who supports the U.S. war with Iran, same thing, 38% very much less likely to vote for them versus only 18% who would. And the rest of the numbers are relatively the same.
Right. And it's important to note this isn't the middle here, the gray is wouldn't affect my decision. Right. So this is like, this issue isn't important to me when voting this next year. But you're still looking at 51 to 32 when it comes to that candidate for U.S. Congress. And that looks like the midterms are going to be a slaughter if that persists. Like if they don't pull out soon, come on, Joe, you're supposed to smile at the camera.
I was trying to behave myself, all right?
If the war doesn't end quickly, it's going to be really bad. It's going to be really nasty.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And then this is an interesting one because they tried to poll test on ballistic missiles. The poll found contradictory views among Americans by a net margin of 70 points. 83 to 13 voters said it was important for them that Iran be prevented from possessing ballistic missiles capable of reaching Israel. So 83 to 13, right? So that does poll well. So when Republicans are saying we are preventing them from acquiring or having ballistic missiles by forcing them to fire the ball at us, it just isn't a real written poll. But that is something that they're going to lean into, I suspect, because Republicans are going to say we need to keep them from getting a nuke. This is all worth it because they won't get a nuclear bomb and they won't be able to shoot it at America.
Well, this one says Israel, not America.
I know, but
which is interesting.
That's the same thing to Republicans. What are you talking about?
Well, yeah, of course.
Distinction without a difference.
But doesn't this say? This doesn't specify that it's 83 to 13% of voters said it was important to them that Iran be prevented from possessing a ballistic missile. Just amongst Republicans, this is all voters.
Yeah, right.
Right. So that's how do you get such contradictory results?
You're
going to vote against somebody who supports the war. But you also want them not to have a nuclear weapon.
Dude, that's voters. That's democracy for you, man. They want maximal benefits with minimal expenses, right? So I want to keep services high while cutting my taxes and having low taxes. Someone else should be taxed for all the services. All these things are very typical.
Are the majority of these poll respondents? Are they just dumb?
Well, they're regular people. Regular people don't know politics. Well, but for example, if someone would ask me that, I'd be like, how can we prevent them from having them? They already have them. So the poll was just that. This question wasn't written well, so it could actually change the outcome quite a bit.
We need to destroy or / obliterate their ballistic missiles program, obviously.
Yeah.
Duh.
And another one that's going to be killer, you're going to see a lot more coverage of the girls' elementary school strike because this poll did reveal that a lot of people have not heard of it.
Including Trump.
Yeah, Trump knows nothing about it.
Yeah.
A full 32% said they had heard nothing at all, and another 23% said they had heard a little. So that's a third of the American public have not heard at all about the unfortunate bombing of the girls' school.
Only 16% had heard, quote, a lot.
Yeah, and that is now confirmed, right? When it first came out, of course, both sides are like, you did it, But now...
those classic Iranian Tomahawk missiles.
It's probably a Chinese knockoff, okay?
Yeah. So
they've been stealing our technology for decades.
And first, CNN had an OSIT, open source intelligence report that was like, this is probably us guys. And then like a lot of things started piling until they finally came out with an official government finding that this is it. They're still investigating, but the early findings are that we were to blame. And this is a terrible tragedy, guys. Like, this is, I mean, when this has happened in the past, we're talking about Afghanistan and Iraq, people went to jail for this. We had real prosecutions based upon this sort of thing happening. Is that going to happen this time? And if you at all have a moment of saying, no, what does that say about our moment? Really think about that. If you take us slaughtering, was it 70, 60 little girls?
I think it was more.
Yeah, I think
it was
forgetting the numbers.
I think it was like 170, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, in a strike, and you're saying like, well, war's hell, and you're not saying demanding accountability. What decided this? That is the degradation of our soul. It is the removal of all that is noble and good out of the Western spirit. To say even good people do something wrong, and good people, when they do something wrong, should pay for it. That is the difference. That is the moment we have to land on with this. Abu Ghraib happened and people were prosecuted. My Lai Massacre happened. People were prosecuted. That is this war's My Lai Massacre on the first day. And second to that, if it was done by artificial intelligence, which there has been some accusations that maybe this targeting was done by artificial intelligence like Claude or something like that, then maybe we really got to hold something accountable. So maybe we need to roll back that policy a little bit and put a little more humans in our decision-making framework here to catch such errors, because we cannot make that error again, ever again.
I just assumed we were using whatever Israel was using.
Well, we do get the intelligence from Israel. And it is, of course, possible that Israel... The targeting system... The targeting system's American. What do you mean, Bennett? I don't understand.
Because they were bombing their own schools and hospitals in Gaza.
Well, okay. Here's another thing. And
yep, missed that one.
Tucker Carlson kind of made a note on this recently too. I think it's worth a case worth considering. It's somewhat conspiratorial. So if you're one of those hyper literal people who cannot possibly ever have conversations about what could be, plug your ears. Basically the theory could be that if you were Israel and if you wanted America maximally engaged in the war for as long a period of time, where they are stained by the thing, they have to make it worth it now that they're paying such a price for it. One of the things you might do if you were providing the targeting information to American, translating it from Farsi to English, is you might make a little mistake and you might give them a girls' school that's not something else.
Yeah. I thought I read somewhere that there was some sort of naval installation like next door or nearby the girls' school. Don't know how true that is, but on the AI targeting front, I mean, all of this kind of took place just after the controversy around the Department of War asking or demanding that Anthropic give them the capability of fully autonomous weapons, because Anthropic was deeply embedded, its technology was deeply embedded in the Department of War. There was all these threatening messages from the Department of War that if they don't give them this capability, they're going to label them a supply chain risk. They're going to strip all their tech out of all these surely very valuable defense contracts. And the CEO of Anthropic said no, to his credit, because I think, we've all seen our ChatGPT or whatever you use hallucinate or lie to you outright, or just make a mistake. How can we trust these models to be accurate 100% of the time when lives are at stake, right? Like especially this many. And so he said no, but then of course Sam Altman stepped right in and OpenAI took over the contract. So were they using Anthropic? Were they using OpenAI? Don't really know, but I think this definitely is a bit of an indictment of the state of where the AI industry is, and certainly should cause people a lot of pause when considering how deeply this should be used in these contexts specifically.
Yes, 100%. And one important thing you said, you framed up the front, if you look at this, you see the girls' school right next to an IRGC compound. There's this perimeter wall here. So it is close to an official military target, and they did strike the IRGC compound, but then they also struck here. And it shows you some of the entrances and where things are at. Now, it's also important to know is we didn't just hit it once. This was a double tap hit. When you strike, you wait a little bit, people come to help the survivors, and you strike again. And that makes it so much worse on every level.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
Do you know, not that it's relevant, or it kind of is, fuck it. What time of day was it? Like, could they not have just waited till like after school?
It was midday.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is because the targeting had to do with killing Khomeini. It had little to do with military operations. Now, this is reportedly the attack that we're talking about, which is crazy that it actually was caught.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see that missile right there.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's identified as a Tomahawk. Now, we know that Trump said, well, lots of places have Tomahawks. But we know that's not true.
Just want a note to put Joe on camera right then.
Yeah.
So here's him being asked.
The military investigation has found that the United States struck the school in Iran. As Commander-in-Chief, you take responsibility for that.
That is what?
As Commander-in-Chief, do you
For what?
For the strike on the school in Iran? A new report says the military investigation has found it was the United States that struck the school.
I don't know about it. Are you the president?
That is not the way to answer that from a political point of view.
Yeah, and my question is, because I've seen the other clip of him answering, being like what you just said, like a lot of people have Tomahawks, which is we do
that
sell
lasted for about a
some,
day.
but like not like whatever. It's,
not to Iran.
It's a ridiculous statement. Which one came first? Is what I'm trying to get at.
That's the more recent one. Him being asked, that was only a day ago. The first response, once there was the fact that it was a Tomahawk, he said, like, well, I mean, lots of people have Tomahawks. Lots of people don't have Tomahawks. We sold it to a very small number of countries. And none of them are Iran. None of them are in the Middle East. So unless Britain was somehow bombing one girls' school on that particular day, it wasn't Iran that did it. It was probably us. Come on, guys. And it's just, and that's the thing that drives me crazy, is the right way to say to that is not, well, war is hell, or it's like, I don't know anything about that, or whatever. You can't run away from it. You have to confront it, and you have to say, it is horrible, and we will hold people accountable, and we're going to investigate and find out what happened, where we made such a terrible mistake. It's the only leadership you can exercise in that point. And it's been so difficult, so disappointing to watch Trump fail to rise to that standard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so it's important to note that they continue on the rhetoric around the girls' school, and it actually just step back just for 1 second, because I think this is important. We are in a moment of the fog of war. When it initially came out, you had both sides say, no, you did it, right? And then the initial reporting from Iran and the UN were correct here, and were dismissed by a large group of people. And if you dismissed it when it first came out with, well, of course, Iran did it. The Trump administration literally said Iran did it because they're the people who do that sort of thing. And if you took that as a serious comment from a serious person talking about something serious, you've been lied to, and you need to reconcile with that. You got to realize that Trump has virtues, but he does have some vices. And one of those is that he's not going to take responsibility for this, apparently. I would love to be proven wrong about that, because I think it would be really important for our country if he did. And, international reporting, Reuters, they got it right off the bat. They said, probably America. We don't know yet, but there's good reasons to believe that because of, these facts on the ground. The domestic propaganda from the right continued throughout that time period. And we're only talking about, how long has it been? Like a week?
Yeah, if that.
Was what girls' school? Not an important thing. People died. Like, you can't just run away from that. It is so destructive to our national character to do that. And the last part, the CNN open source intelligence stuff comes out, and people were still denying it. And the Trump administration, Hegseth and those guys continued the propaganda on this all the way until midweek this week. This is them being asked about it.
School in Southern.
Sorry, this is about them being asked about it on the 7th. And I'm going back to litigate this because it is really important to think about it from the perspective of people who believed this at the time and how they were manipulated by this kind of messaging to not see what everyone else in the world saw.
The United States bomb a girls' elementary school in southern Iran on the first day of the war and kill 175 people.
In my opinion, based on what I've seen, that was done by Iran.
Is that true, Mr. Hegseth? It was Iran who did that?
We're certainly investigating.
Still
But
investigating.
the only side that targets civilians is Iran.
We think it was done. We think it was done by Iran.
Can you give us an
Because they're very inaccurate, as you know, with their munitions. They have no accuracy whatsoever. It was done by Iran.
Oh my God. All right.
Yeah.
Wait, I have a couple thoughts. Also, first, for context, you said we were going back to the 7th. It is the 12th. This is 5 days since this recording. Also, if they're so inaccurate, how has like their ballistic missiles program been such a scapegoat of like why we needed to hit them first? They're like, well, we could just fucking keep everyone in place, and they're just gonna miss.
If they're going to hit their own people in their own country and they're that inaccurate, why are we worried about it? Is a totally fair question, Bennett. I didn't even think of that. That's a great point, buddy.
Might be the smartest thing you've ever said, Bennett.
Well done, buddy. No, I love it. I mean, and that's the thing that kills me is it's just like, well, they did it because they were the bad guys. Bad guys do bad guy stuff.
Right.
And we're good guys. We only do good stuff. And it's like, no, you're starting a war.
Yeah.
And in a war, mistakes happen, and those mistakes are incredibly consequential.
Yes.
And you gotta take responsibility for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
What to do.
there continues to be a lot of rhetoric about boots on the ground. We do have a national defense authorization bill that is being debated. And 2025 NDAA was passed, and in that NDAA it had automatic registration for the draft for selective service system.
Yeah.
And they're now talking, and like, if this goes bad, the very worst case scenario is a draft. So this draft conversation, this boots on the ground conversation is really boiling up. And that Guardian article, for example, it mentions that Israel's intelligence service does not believe you can end the government without boots on the ground. Is Israel going to do it? They're invading Lebanon. They're not going to do it. They got to do what they're doing in Gaza, which I haven't seen anything about for a while, but who knows what's happening down there. Are they going to do it? No, they're not. There's no way. I don't think they have the capability to, honestly.
Right. And when you think about that, and I'm no like war strategist, but have you looked at a topographical map of the nation of Iran?
Yeah.
It's like a fortress surrounded by extremely high mountain ranges.
And
the
deserts.
whole thing is mountain ranges and deserts.
Yeah.
Well, also,
And if we thought Iraq or Afghanistan were a quagmire, what is this going to be?
Yeah.
on top of that, when you think about a draft, I think it was RFK was just recently on Rogan, and I think the number was like 73% of military eligible age people would not.
Wouldn't qualify.
Yeah, wouldn't qualify for the military.
Yeah,
so who
'cause
the
they're-
fuck is going over there?
H-1Bs.
Yeah. Cindy and the Hayden hands.
I mean, I could make a lot of insensitive statements right now. I'm not going to. I'm a good person.
Yeah, so there's that dynamic is an important one. We're still left in this very important question. The most important question is, what will it take to achieve the war aims? If the war aims are the ending of the regime, can we get rid of the regime without boots on the ground? Can we just bomb them into submission? Bomb them into civil war? Doesn't appear that it's happening yet, and there's no actions by the administration, but the boiling point is increasing. Right, where that's what I'm feeling. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel the boiling point going up. I feel when you look at weird news reports of like people in California should be really worried about a drone attack from Iran, and like just like insane 2001 level insane red alert kind of news reporting. That's boots on the ground preparation.
Well, it seems to me that there's two directions. It's boots on the ground or it's tactical nukes. And neither sound great at all. Both sound terrible, actually. But I mean, probably if it's going to go that way and it has to go one way, the boots on the ground would be better for the entirety of humanity on the globe.
Well, yeah, and especially the biggest thing isn't the deployment of a singular nuclear weapon, other than the violation of the taboo, because that could have a lot of collateral consequences. Can think about culturally.
Well, a cascading effect of
It's
usage.
also, once gone off, you got to make sure every country that has nukes doesn't think that they're being attacked.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we've got
everything's on a hair trigger.
Yeah. We've got a room full of mousetraps ready to start exploding.
Hey, Russia, it's just going to fly over your airspace. It's not going to hit you.
Trust us, bro.
I don't think we'd shoot intercontinental ballistic missiles to do it. We drop it from a pixel-shaped bomber. Yeah.
That's just insane to me.
I do worry about the nukes thing, though, because we're asking for unconditional surrender in the war that we're not in, but the unconditional surrender, the last time we asked that, we dropped 2. So
that's another development. Yeah. So unconditional surrender. Like, have we issued a formal? Wait, how do we ask for unconditional surrender
when we're not,
at
war?
war?
But we've been at war for 40 something years that they started.
Did we start the war in 1953 then?
No, we're the good guys. We
don't do that. So I don't know. I don't know what it means for the president to tweet a policy still. I'm still perplexed by it. Am I just old? And then I'm still like, that's not a real policy. That's just rhetoric. I treat tweets as rhetoric until it's like put into something tangible, like an executive order or something. But that said, war is done by diplomacy. That is often just talk. That's how it starts, and then it turns into a treaty, or it turns into like an agreement that it's on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And then I don't know how to take that, and I also take a lot of that could be false reporting that the Trump administration is also looking for détente and trying to engage into discourse with the remaining Iranian leadership, who are rejecting that. And there is a new Ayatollah now, whose entire family has been killed in this war already.
And apparently he's more hardline than the first guy, so nice job.
We really did a good job on that
Replace the Taliban with the Taliban, only worse. Yeah. Well, and I think there's...
Jesus Christ. I didn't even think of that.
Just batting 1,000 with regime change.
Why are we so bad at this? Wait, why? I didn't even think that it's just like the Taliban.
Well, yeah,
it's
only
totally
quicker.
true.
Only way quicker.
Yeah.
We replaced the Ayatollah with the Ayatollah in about 10 days.
Well, it's the same thing that just happened in Venezuela. We took out Maduro, but his VP is still the fucking person. It's still the same administration.
But the oil is going to Israel, so
cool.
W.
Yeah,
W's.
that's a dub.
W.
Well, and I mean, speaking of oil, there are other pressures on this situation. Predominantly the Strait of Hormuz. What is it? 90% of traffic of oil through the strait, which is like 20-30 million barrels a day, is cut off. Yes. And there were just a couple of ships, I believe, that tried to transit the strait who were flying foreign flags, but were found out to be American ships, and it appears that they were struck despite President Trump's assurances that we would ensure transit and whatever. We're not going to send Navy vessels to escort them, but we'll insure you. Well, I mean, that didn't really
they've
matter.
said that they're going to do that. They just haven't figured out how they're going to do that.
How to have a Navy vessel escort a ship?
Well, get into the Strait of Hormuz and get out again is alive. That's the question, right? So, yeah, you're right. Iran has struck some ships. There's been a bunch of naval combat, but almost none of it's been in the Strait of Hormuz, apparently. And the most of what's happening is actually in the outer Persian Gulf. So about 8 ships have attacked in the Strait, 19 plus in the greater Gulf area. So according to this USNI news report, this talks to a lot of people in the administration and naval officers and people like that. And basically it says, yeah, the president said we're going to do this, but we don't know how to do this yet safely. Now, one of the reasons I think this is true that isn't mentioned here, but Daryl Cooper mentions on his show last week, is that it's really important for us to understand the geography here. You have, on the north side, you have Iran with a bunch of mountains and a lot of high positions with ballistic missiles and old school artillery. So imagine like an artillery system is not like a ballistic system where you got to roll it out and you got to set it up and it shoots and it leaves this giant.
So like howitzers?
Howitzers?
Yeah. Isn't that like artillery?
Is that the right word?
Howitzer is a type of
artillery.
Artillery, yes.
Like I'm thinking like old school, like World War II style artillery.
Yeah, that's what you have in mind. It's like a big shell and a giant ass gun that shoots. And apparently Iran has approximately 7,000 artillery systems of various types in the country.
But they couldn't hit water if they fell out of a boat, according to Trump.
Yeah. And that was some imagery I had of it. Oh, shoot. Yeah, I'm going to leave it. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so here's an example. Like, you got it on a tank thing, and it just rolled that out of a cave someplace. There's tank. Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Reaches up, shoots, goes back in. You don't have this giant trail of smoke to lead you back to where the launcher is. You don't have, like, you have to have much more accurate, real-time
Iranian
monitoring.
M110 self-propelled howitzer.
Nailed it, Bennett.
I did nail it.
Yeah. So exactly. So these sorts of weapons could be more difficult to find, more difficult to destroy, can be hidden easier. Probably many complications that it comes to that it's not just drones and ballistic missiles. It's also artillery shooting into the Strait of Hormuz, which could be a whole other set of challenges that weren't originally understood within the first few days of the war.
Well, right. And then the tankers that were hit, and you're correct, it was in the Persian Gulf, like near Iraq. The two tankers that were hit with explosive boats. Like kamikaze boats, basically similar to the drones.
Drone boats.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's
not kamikaze would be wrong. There's no pilot on the boat.
Yeah, but a lot of them call them kamikazes. Actually, like a lot of the drones are actually called kamikaze drones.
Oh, really?
Just the idea of just striking something with the flying craft.
Sure.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. And I don't. You wonder how much bigger the challenge is at that point, how much longer this is going to go in order to remove that threat. Because and the reason why this is you have to put yourself into the mindset of the Iranians. What are their war aims or what are ours? Ours are to destabilize the regime so that they wind up in a state of civil war, destabilize and break the nation state apart, or transition them in some way. Their aim is to resist that and persist while maximizing punishment to the rest of the world for allowing this to happen.
Right. Which includes all the Gulf states.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the Gulf states that supported military bases in the United States, that have all the countries in the world that participate in the United States with the devastatingly brutal sanctions regime. Right. And I'm not saying maybe the sanctions were totally legit. You could totally support the war, but you got to put yourself into their minds if you're going to think strategically about it. And once you're there, you're like, they have every reason to wait around, let us spend a bunch of effort on it, and then just roll out a tank, wait until we think it's safe, and then sink a vessel. And then all of a sudden, gas prices are back up through the roof, and it's going to be really. I really fear that we're underestimating this systemically as a society.
I agree.
Yeah. So the last one I predicted, I'm really worried was overly accurate. Is this a domestic terror surge? So, in the classic understanding of blowback, is Ron Paul, our boy, is going to be interviewing him. You go check it out.
Yeah, Leah McCollum just interviewed Ron Paul. Episode should be live right now when this episode airs. Definitely check it out on his channel, The Leah McCollum Show. It's a great interview. Great interview with a legend who knows all about blowback, and they did discuss quite a bit of this stuff as well.
So he popularized the term in the American consciousness amongst my generation, and really at all completely together. So the CIA. So in 1953, we overthrow the democratically elected Mossadegh and replace him with a Shah who reigns until 1979, who's then replaced by the Ayatollah. Basic story. Mm-hmm. Now the CIA did analysis of that, and they said, this is blowback, meaning we did a secret intelligence operation to install the Shah, and then it had this collateral consequence that was unattended with the 1979 revolution. That was the concept. Now, Ron Paul applied that to 9/11, and that when you look at the motives and everything that happened with the Mujahideen and the actions in Iraq and Kuwait and throughout the Middle East throughout the 1990s, that is the thing that motivates these people. All these secret things that we did. Ask the average American, do you know how many people died in Iraq from our sanctions regime? They will tell you I have no idea. They don't know it's 500,000 people. Right? Even if you're old enough to be around when they were asked about that on television, they said, well, it's worth the price, right? Our audience knows that if you've been watching a long time, but most people don't. So you have these secret intelligence, plots that wind up with very public collateral consequences that devastate people's trust in our government. Well, this isn't a secret operation. It's a very public operation. And so it does have blowback. Now, it's not technically blowback in the CIA sense of the term, but these are the collateral consequences of being a hegemon that needs to maintain our hegemonic power. It isn't fighting defensively, but we're fighting in other countries, offensive wars in order to maintain our hegemony. When that happens, it creates resentment amongst a group of people who live in America because we both invade the world and we invite the world. And what we're seeing, at least today, are situations, 3 now, that do look like they could be, although investigations are not complete yet, but they could be a blowback attack. Or they could be like sleeper cell agents that were activated after. I don't know which.
Yeah.
We don't know. But there was a attack on a Reformed Jewish school called Temple Israel in Michigan. Today, a guy rammed his truck into the school. Apparently, it was loaded with explosives, which failed to explode. A fire was started in the basement. So if you saw like pictures of the school like floating around, there's like a bunch of smoke coming out. There was a fire, but no one was injured. Thank God. There was a casualty, and that was the aggressor, the guy who came there and did that. He was immediately engaged by security and shot. The motive is there's not a known motive. However, sources close to the investigation have told local media that the suspect was a resident of Dearborn Heights. This is a city with a large Arab American population and has tied to Middle East, and that members of his family were recently killed in an airstrike in Lebanon. One of the things that is underreported right now is that Israel is in a fight with Hezbollah and Lebanon and invading them somewhat. I don't know if they're invading to control territory or just to take out Hezbollah or what, but Israel kind of has a bit of a reputation in that area.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
Yeah. So there was also shooting in Old Dominion University. A gunman opened fired at Constant Hall. This is the College of Business at Old Dominion. This is in Norfolk, Virginia, and it was shortly before, it was like in the morning today. So 2 attempted shootings today. There was a victim killed in this one, and 2 others were injured. Conditions are non-life threatening, is what I read. The gunman was killed by ROTC students who were able to subdue him.
Did it specify? It kind of just said students. I don't know.
I read ROTC specifically.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. But early reporting, right? There's going to be a lot of uncertainty. These could be wrong facts too here too. So just like get the broad scope here. The suspect was identified as Mohammed Baylor Jola.
It's better than I did.
Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
A former Army National Guard member convicted in 2016 of attempting to provide material support to ISIS. He served 11 years in prison and was released in December of 2024. Yeah. Yeah. And then, of course, there was the Austin shooting, which we haven't got to cover. Last week, there was a shooting in Austin. 3 people were killed. The guy and about 13 to 19 were injured. And the guy was wearing a Property of Allah shirt. And this is just downtown Austin, just a guy going on a rampage.
6th Street, I think, like a very popular bar district.
Yeah, and so some of this is, once again, oftentimes these kind of terrorist attacks, people will look at it and be like, well, Muslims just hate us, right? And they'll kind of use that narrative. You look like Laura Loomer and people like that. They just do this because they're crazy, or they just do it because they hate us. They don't see the larger picture of which these people are operating in. And at minimum, if you're skeptical of this claim, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do Iran. Well, I believe that. But even if you think we should, you have to understand that these are just the collateral consequences of that. And so when you're going to do a military engagement, you ask yourself, how many Americans are willing to die for this? And it's not necessarily just going to be even if it's on the other side of the world, it's not necessarily just going to be our military members. It's going to be people at home, innocent people at home who had nothing to do with this decision. Because we are an open society that has immigrants and lets people in and engages with the world and trades around the world. We can't both be that and an empire and be safe at the same time. And I would advocate that a more aligned foreign policy with America first would suggest that we both not invite quite as much of the world maybe in. Maybe between infinity and 0, we pick a number and we stick with it when it comes to immigration. But then also, if we stop messing around with the world, we're going to get less of these kind of attacks because we're not murdering so many people, and that does make people mad.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and I think that's a reasonable. Am I being unreasonable with that, Bennett, Joe?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean,
that seems pretty reasonable.
It seems like, and it's not letting the terrorists win by doing that. It's saying we're not benefiting from this war. I still have yet to see an articulation of which America benefits from this war. You know, and so we're doing it for Israel, and we're paying a price that includes the lives of 4 Americans, regular Americans already. And that's really unfortunate. And I hope this war ends quickly, and that by the time this episode comes out, it won't even be relevant because we'll already be out of the war.
That would be ideal.
But I'm afraid it's unlikely. So
does seem that way.
Yep. That's it for today, guys. Thank you. And I hope you enjoyed our episode of Real Islamic Housewives of Iran.
Sorry for the bait and switch, ladies. Don't count it out. We may someday, possibly, do an actual review of that show, but
Probably not.
I'd say the odds of that are about as likely as the war ending before the end of this episode. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. This has been Human Reaction. On behalf of David Rand and Bennett, I'm Joe Sheehan, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to become a member and support the show financially, check out humanreactionpod.com.